A man finds a strange manuscript in his attic. He reads it, is inspired by it, and decades later, becomes a writer himself. He writes a book and travels back in time to leave it in that very attic for his younger self to find. Stop and ask the obvious question. Who actually wrote the book? Not him. He only copied what he already read. Not his younger self either, he was just the reader. The book exists. It's real. It has no author. This is the Bootstrap Paradox, and it might be the single most impossible loop that time travel has ever created. The name comes from the old phrase pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, physically impossible, obviously, but used to describe achieving something from absolutely nothing, with no outside cause. That's exactly the trap here. Normally, cause comes before effect. A writer exists, then a book gets written. But in a bootstrap loop, the effect creates the cause, which creates the effect, endlessly, with no starting point anywhere in the chain. Not a paradox of contradiction. The liar paradox breaks logic by contradicting itself. This paradox breaks something even stranger, the requirement that anything need an origin at all. Most time travel paradoxes involve conflict changing the past, undoing your own existence, creating a contradiction that can't resolve. The bootstrap paradox is quieter and somehow more disturbing. Nothing has changed. Nothing is undone. The loop is perfectly, seamlessly consistent. And that consistency is exactly the problem. A song exists with no composer. An invention exists with no inventor. Information real, complete, functioning information is simply looping through time, self-sustaining, uncaused. Physicists have a name for this, an ontological paradox. Not asking what happens if you break the past. Asking what happens if something exists that was never actually created at all. Here's the part that should unsettle you. This isn't just fiction. Einstein's field equations technically permit closed time-like curves, loops in spacetime where an event can, in principle, become its own cause. Nothing in the mathematics automatically forbids an object or a piece of information from looping endlessly through time with no beginning. Some physicists argue these loops could exist stably, without contradiction, precisely because nothing is being changed, only repeated. Which means, according to the very equations that describe our universe, a perfectly self-caused object isn't just imaginable. It might be mathematically permitted. Strip away the time machines, and the bootstrap paradox is asking something quietly profound. Does everything need an origin? Humans are wired to trace effects back to causes, stories back to authors, ideas back to inventors. We assume every loop has a starting thread you can pull. But what if some loops don't? What if, somewhere in the structure of reality, causation isn't a line? It's a circle with no first point, no beginning to find, no matter how far back you search. The bootstrap paradox doesn't ask you to imagine breaking time. It asks you to imagine something existing that never needed a beginning at all, a thought with no thinker, a cause with no source, a circle closed so perfectly there's no seam left to find. If that idea just quietly broke something in your brain, good, that means it's working. Subscribe, because next time, we're stepping into a paradox even stranger than this one. And tell me in the comments, if you found a perfect, self-written book with no author, would you even try to read it, or would it scare you too much?